guys? I know it's been a long time since the last podcast episode. Our schedules just haven't really lined up. There's been a lot of things going on in our lives, and we just haven't been able to get together to film a proper podcast like we usually do every single week. So going forward, we have come up with some solutions to try and make the process more smoother, work out better with our schedules. So you may see in future episodes just some different things going on, but that's next week. This week we wanted to make sure that there was still some kind of video that we put out this week. So what we're doing is each of us, me, Mark, and Cole, are each recording a short video, just a few minutes long, talking about the best game that we played in January. I'm gonna cut to them, and I will see you guys when it's time to talk about mine.
Hello, Let's Play community. This is Mark, and this week CJ, Cole, and myself are trying something a little different. I get to work from home, which is nice and relaxing. This episode, we are going to talk about our favorite game that we played in January of 2026. But first, this week's mystery quote is, "That rug really tied the room together." All right, cult classic, guys. I believe in you. First person to comment with the name of the movie will get something. I don't know. Maybe you'll get a good handshake or something, but come into the store when you enter that. So January was filled with a lot of plays, but I think my favorite play was of Capstone Games' new one from last year, actually, and that's Sanctuary. So for those of you who are familiar with Ark Nova, fantastic game, rather intense, a little more involved, still an absolutely great game. You're building out kind of a zoo on a player board in front of you. They're going to release 3D pieces to that here soon, which is going to just blow the player boards out of the water with just awesome effects. I'm really looking forward to seeing that on the table. But Sanctuary, I just think, is just beautiful, right? So for those of you familiar with Ark Nova, you're building your own player board, and you don't really see the animals. The animals are on cards that are over to the right, and so you put little habitats down on your player board, and sometimes maybe you'll put cubes down. It's great. I mean, it's okay. A 3-component, I think, is going to really elevate that. But for Sanctuary, you're actually putting hexes on your player board with the picture and the imagery, and so at the end of the game, you've got this just absolutely beautiful zoo in front of you, and I really think that's amazing. I think there's less going on. I think it's a little more streamlined. I think it just plays smoother, and I think, for me, I would be more convinced to get Sanctuary to the table versus Ark Nova. Ark Nova, I've had a handful of games where I'm shooting for trying to get primates or something, and they're just not coming out. Or the wildlife cards at the top, I'm sure they're called something else, are for reptiles, and I can't get any reptiles. This game, I think there are less possibilities, and so you were constantly kind of able to work through maybe getting some bad tiles, and I didn't think it really bogged down the game much. I played a game, I think in the last month or two, it might have been January, of Ark Nova, and it was painstaking. It's like I made some things work, but nothing really seemed to flow, and it wasn't really an enjoyable game for me, unfortunately. It doesn't help that I was playing with Cole, and Cole was crushing it as he usually does. So that was my number one play in January 2026, Sanctuary. An honorary mention, though, and I think this is how you say it, Perudu, right? So for those of you who are familiar with Liar's Dice, it's essentially Liar's Dice. I've never played it before. Ben was talking about it and saying, hey, you've got this game, it's just like Liar's Dice, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, well, let's, make a store copy and play it, because I've always wanted to play Liar's Dice. So we did. So much fun. Absolute blast. Now, all right, maybe I'm a little biased. I did win the game. I had 4 dice left, and both Ben and Cole had no dice left, and that always makes me happy. But some really great moments where we were up to 3 players. So at most, you're going to have, I think everybody starts with 5 dice. So at most, you're going to have 15 dice. And at one point, somebody said 8 threes, and I said 9 threes, and sure enough, there were 9 threes, and the odds of it happening were just crazy. But it's just a lot of luck, kind of probability, right? If your opponents only have, each have 1 dice left and you have 3 dice left, there's only 5 dice. So if somebody says, 5 fives, what are the odds of that? It's next to impossible. So just a lot of fun. The store, I think, has 1 copy right now, but we're going to order some more, and so we should have some by the end of this week or next week. But that was a lot of fun as well. So definitely some great games. Come on out to the store, play some great games, and I think that concludes my January 2026 plays. At some point, we're going to smooth up, kind of align this podcast a little bit better. CJ and I are constantly making moves forward with the store. Looks like we're going to have a new website here soon, thanks to CJ, and an online store that you can access with the website. So lots of great stuff coming down the pipeline. Stay tuned. All right. Thanks, everybody. And what Cole says, play more games, I think. Oh, God, I should pay attention more. But no matter. Everybody have a great one, and I'll see you later.
Hello, everyone. It's me. You know who I am. I need no introduction. As you imagine, I assume this is this week's episode of Let's Talk, and so things are a little bit disjointed. Probably seeing this spliced in with other videos from CJ and Mark and all that fun jazz. I believe what we're talking about this week is how our Januaries went in terms of board gaming. I think specifically what was the best game we played in January, and I am going to get into that. But I can go ahead and cover a few of my personal stats for the month of January. I did just make a post about this on my personal account yesterday. But for me, let's see here, because I've got it pulled up here. Let's see, I had logged 70 plays. Now, that's probably close to accurate, but I know for me, I do my best to log all my plays, but sometimes they're just games that I just either forget to log or I don't bother logging. Sometimes certain party games, depending on how quick it is or how things are going, I might miss out on logging some of those, but that's whatever. Of the things I recorded, though, and most of the games that I care most about, no offense to those that didn't make it in, if you will, but like I said, I logged over 70 plays. And amongst those 70 plays, I hit an H index of 4, which, if you don't know, an H index is basically saying that I've played X number of games, X number of times. So for me, I hit an H index of 4, meaning I've played 4 games at least 4 times each, which in a single month is a little impressive. But not all too surprising, though, when one of my most anticipated games of the year came out in January. So naturally, I was going to get that to the table. And that being said, that was what would become my most played for the month. And yeah, my most played, and I'll get more into this then, for January had to be the Oceania expansion for Darwin's Journey. I was very much... Okay, I shouldn't say the expansion itself was the most played, but the game in general, which in some plays included the expansion, was my most played game of January. It helps that it's a really good game that I very much enjoy, and it even more so helps that I was very much looking forward to this new expansion. And yeah, I think it's really solid. I'm not going to try and weigh in on whether or not I think it was worth the wait that I had to go through to get it, but I'm generally a more patient person, so I generally don't give... I don't get too concerned about where's my game at? I generally just back it, and I'll occasionally look at the campaign for updates and just know that it'll show up eventually. I've not had a bad campaign yet where I haven't eventually gotten the thing that I'm waiting for, and I think the worst I've had to wait is maybe upwards of 2 years between when I pledged for the thing until I got the thing. But like I said, I'm generally a patient person, and besides, I've got so many great games in my collection as is. I'm not going to lose sleep over a game taking a few extra months to get here, especially if that extra wait makes it all the better. But yeah, there was that. Some of the other games that rounded out my most played for January would have to be Earth by Inside Up Games, Scarbray by Garfield Games, and Etherstone by Thunder Griff Games. Yeah. All great games, all highly recommend. If you ever want to try any of those out, I can do my best to find some way to make that happen one way or another. I think Earth would be about the only semi-challenging one on the list, but at any rate. But no, I want to jump into it. My most played for January was Darwin's Journey, and I'm going to give a little overview of the base game, and then I'll cover the expansion as best as I can with that. But no, Darwin's Journey is this rather, I don't want to say super complicated, but it is definitely a more involved worker placement game. But at the end of the day, that's all it is a worker placement game. Realistically, you've got 4, possibly 5 workers that you're placing out each round, and you're playing it out over 5 rounds. So roughly you have anywhere from 20 to 25 actions. That's it. But where it gets really interesting is that like each worker starts with a seal on it and can gain additional seals that can enhance its versatility and where it can go and what it can do. And there are several major areas in the board that you can go. So like maybe you go to because you're basically Darwin exploring the Galapagos Islands, and so like you can be an explorer going through one of the islands and finding new specimens, or getting money or tokens or more seals, or putting out tents, or any kind of crazy combination of any of those things that are in. Or you could go exploring or go navigating with your ship, so you've got the ship track and you're moving down, and you want to do that to some degree because there's this Beagle ship that like as long as you're behind it, you're going to potentially lose points every round. And I say potentially because if you gain any and you're behind, then you will lose some points, but if you don't gain any points and you're behind, you don't get negative. That's not how that works. It's not that mean of a game. But yeah, you can also do correspondence, which means you're putting out stamps and you're potentially getting into round bonuses, and if you put out enough stamps, you can unlock other bonuses, and then they have like this academy where you can go to get more seals to be able to do more and better things with your workers, and there's like all these special actions that if your workers have enough seals, you can go do those instead, and those can be potentially more varied combinations of the previously mentioned actions or better versions of them even, things like that. And just the other major thing I guess would be is like if you gather any specimens, you can go deliver to them to the museum to potentially get a lot of points at the end game, or you can go pick up objectives, and as you get certain seals or certain specimens or do certain things in the game, you can complete those objectives, and that's at the very least that's how you can get your 5th worker. But you can also get a whole bunch of other things, like maybe you get like discounts or bonuses or whatever during the game to make it easier as you progress. But yeah, it's a really solid game, very thematic. I very much enjoy it, but I know that at least initially it can be very overwhelming because you have a moderate amount of choices, but you're never quite sure what is the right choice, what is going to be the most impactful, what's going to get me to where I'm trying to go. Then it's like, yeah, you can go do this action, and it's like, cool, then I can do this action, and then but like figuring out what combination of actions is the best to do and what's the right way to do them in, and to set yourself up for each subsequent round to be able to do more and better things, it can be tough to understand at first because you're just simply, in the beginning, you're simply just trying to understand what can I do, let alone daring to try and even figure out what should I do. And so for those reasons, yeah, it can be a very complex game. And I've had that for a couple of years now, and I very much enjoy it. I even enjoy the Fireland expansion that is already available for it. But yeah, I just recently got my crowdfunded copy of the Oceania expansion, and boy, do I very much enjoy that one. So what I like about this expansion is it's themed around Oceania, so like kind of set like in Australia, New Zealand territory, things like that. And this introduces the concept of hazards, and there's all kinds of these hazards. So as you discover new specimens, if you're the first one to do it, cool, you gotta deal with a hazard. Or if you go sailing far enough on the ship track or one of the island tracks, you also have to deal with hazards if you're the first to cross certain thresholds. And yeah, as you gain these hazards, there's this little track that like you're going to advance down on, and the further down the track you go, the bigger a penalty you're going to suffer at the end of the round. And maybe that penalty is you got to give up seals that you've already got, which can be very devastating. I played a game where that just absolutely destroyed me. I was like I lost by over 100 points. It was insane. I'm like, my opponents just picked it up so gracefully, and I'm just over here like struggling like a fish floundering out of water. It's insane. It's like I don't know what I did wrong, but also I can't even begin to understand what they were doing. Like like they were doing so much, and they didn't even have a lot of seals themselves, and I'm like, how did you connect all the? I don't know. It was crazy. But at any rate, I do enjoy that. That like there's this sort of like, okay, I can rush to do things, but if I'm the first to do them, I'm going to have to suffer these hazards. Is that a cost I'm willing to bear? And what's nice is everyone's going to potentially suffer these hazards. If you don't cross any of those thresholds in a round and you don't gain any hazards, then yeah, you're not going to suffer at all. But then that means you're potentially either always playing second fiddle to the other players, or you're just not doing enough. Who knows? But whoever suffers the most penalty from these hazards, then they'll get the hazard they'll get the hazard like consequence tile or whatever for that round, and it'll give them a small bonus that they can cash in on a later round. Like maybe this round they have to give up like stamps or something, and then in a future round they have this token they can then cash in to put out a stamp. So it kind of like makes up for it. It's like, oh, here you got a big penalty. Now here's a way to recover, kind of a thing. And it is very interesting, I would say, trying to find that right balance. But what I also enjoy is that it's, if you've never played Fireland, then the Fireland expansion, then all you're ever going to be used to is these new islands, or just 3 islands and 1 ship track. Whereas like this expansion still only has the 1 ship track, but has new and different islands. And yeah, it introduces the concept of villages. Then it's like, hey, here's a special tent space where everyone can put out a tent, which isn't normally a thing. But then you can unlock some powerful things, like there's the silver one that maybe gets you a special worker or special stamps or a special something that gives you a powerful one-time benefit during the game. And then there's also the gold village, and it's like, oh, here's a thing you can potentially lean into and get a lot of points. It's just like another avenue for scoring. But there's also like, if you're familiar with the special actions, then there's like these 2 special actions along one of the islands and the ship track, and like after you get so far, you can unlock those or gain access to them, and it's just really great, if you will. And there's other stuff even in this expansion that I haven't jumped into yet that can be used with or without the Oceania expansion, which is nice. Like there's some modules that can be used with just the base game, so I'm very much looking forward to trying more of this. But yeah, the variability that is available with this expansion and just in the base game in general is why I love it so much. That it's like I just recently played a game, and like it was a tight game, don't get me wrong. Like I only won by like 3 points, but like the beginning was just like insane. Like I was looking at like my opening moves, and it's like round 1, it's like, man, I'm gonna be able to do this, that, and that, and it was like, it's insane. But it was just the way that like the special actions that were available that game and the positions they came out in, if you will, like what I was able to do round 1 just felt so crazy, like so good. And it's like I almost felt bad for my opponents. It's like I'm having a really strong start, and I worry that they could quickly fall behind, and it would just be me running away with it. But it ultimately ended up that by like round 4, it's like I'm feeling very much behind, and it's like behind the 1 player, and it's like, ugh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And then by the very end, I was able to edge my opponent out by like 2 or 3 points, and it was just crazy. Now, that didn't involve either expansion. That was just the base game. But still, that's one of the reasons I love this game so much, is that there is so much variability in things. And so like every game feels different and interesting. I mean, I would say some of the moves you do initially, like your round 1, might not vary too much, but where it dovetails from there and how it plays out, that's where it can get really interesting. And yeah, that's just one of the reasons I really love Darwin's Journey. And yeah, if I had to say more about the Oceania expansion, I think it's a solid addition. I know that with the base game, I was able to get a nice like neoprene map that had the base game on one side and the Fireland expansion on the other side. That wasn't an option this time around, and initially, yes, I, like many, was disappointed that they didn't offer neoprene map. But I'm okay with it because they announced that, yeah, if we did a neoprene map, it would just be us printing that base. It would just be us printing that map on the one side, and then we'd have a second side with nothing on, and it's like, that feels a little wasteful. Why would we do that? So we're going to wait till we make the next and final expansion, and then we'll print that and this Ocean expansion, one on each side. And so yeah. And of course, along with that, the Ocean expansion came in its own box, but there's enough content in there, it will not fit in the base box, even the bigger collector's edition box that I have, unfortunately. But no matter, they did say, along with the next and final expansion, they'll be doing a big box as well to hold everything, so I'll be very keen to see what that looks like. But I think that's diverging a little too much from this video, because I'm just trying to talk about the Ocean expansion and not the future, even though that is something to be excited for. But I have to imagine something like that is a couple of years down the road. Like, they might begin talking about it next year, but it wouldn't be until like 2028 at the earliest. I think we'd start to see anything manifest itself. But again, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, for me, for January, like I said, Darwin's Journey was my most played, and a lot of that came down to my getting my copy of the Ocean expansion, which I do very much enjoy, and I would happily teach it to anyone. But I would say you should let me teach you the base game first, because to jump right in with Oceania first, that would be like taking an already complex game and making it even more complex, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to go about things. There are certainly some games with expansions where it's fine to just toss people in with the expansion, like Earth with Abundance. I will never not teach someone Earth with Abundance if I have the option. Terraforming Mars with Prelude. I'm always going to, given the choice, I'm going to teach them with Prelude. It just makes the game that much better. Yeah. I mean, I would even go so far as to say is something like even Ark Nova with the Marine Worlds. I would probably just leave that in there because it's easier to just leave it in there than to try and separate out all the cards. Maybe I don't use the special actions, mind you, but yeah, I'm keeping all those marine animals in there. It's minimal additional complexity load for what it has to offer. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap up my segment because I don't want this to drag on too long. But that's me. That was some of my highlights for January. That said, until next time, play more games.
All right, for my best game of January, I went with a game that I actually bought last March or so, a little bit after Gamma. When we went to Gamma is where I saw it. I had seen it before, but I finally saw it sprayed out on the table, and it was so impressive looking. We ordered it. It was a big, chunky game, and it sat on my shelf for over a year. I just got it to the table this past January. That is the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Now, this is a huge campaign-style game set in the universe of the Elder Scrolls. And you can go through so many different areas. They're called provinces. So you have these gazetteers, these big chunky books full of quests and missions and things you can do in all kinds of different regions throughout Elder Scrolls. You've got like Skyrim, Morrowind, High Rock, it's all kinds of stuff. Valenwood expansion. You've got expansions coming out later this year for Somerset and stuff. Werewolves, vampires, those are all coming. But the game, it was very intimidating. I had tried to pick it up a couple times and play it, and it's a big game. There's a lot of rules to it. There's a lot of nuances and things that you can do. But basically, it is a adventure dungeon crawling kind of game, where you and up to 3 of your friends are going to each create a character set from one of the races in the Elder Scrolls universe. So like Argonians, Bretons, High Elves, Dark Elves, Wood Elves, things like that. So, for example, my first game, and I played this solo a couple times before I got some friends involved, because I wanted to get the handle on the rules, because, like I said, it's a huge game. So my first game I played as a Khajiit rogue. So I was very stealthy. I was using a lot of range attacks like bows and arrows, and I had this cool mechanic where I could like lockpick and move quickly. I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. Basically, what you'll do is you'll create a character, you'll choose a race, you'll choose a class, you'll choose a skill line, and that's the starting of your character. That is what you take into the beginning of the game, and you go through these different missions and quests as you work for a guild, and whatever guild you choose determines the quest line that you take. They all ultimately lead to the same place in each region, but the way you get there is different, and the things that happen at the end are different based on which path you took throughout the quest. So you may play the same final battle a couple times, but they will always have different rules, and different things will happen during the battles because of things you did earlier on in the quest. So what you'll do is you have this overland map where you'll move across. You're playing the game over the course of 12 in-game days. And that's how long you have to get to the end and complete your mission. Now the quest will give you guidelines like do this by day so and so. Those are just general guidelines. You don't have to do them by those specific times, but they will make the quests either easier or harder, whether you follow them or not. So keep those in mind as you're playing. So you'll go across this overland map and you'll go through different kinds of encounters. There are peaceful encounters, conflict encounters, town actions. So there's all kinds of things you can do. So you'll come across a peaceful encounter, and it may say like so and so met you along the road, and they are just asking for advice or information, and you can tell them something or not tell them something, and you can get different experience points that way. Conflict encounters are what they say. You'll usually end up doing a battle or going through some kind of dungeon to figure out something that happened or get some experience or battle a bunch of different creatures. And that's kind of the core of the game is the combat. The combat is very, very combo based and intricate. You can do a lot with the combat. So as you upgrade your skills and you get new skills, you'll get dice that are more powerful or roll better odds or do different things. And you have this cool cooldown track, which kind of limits what you can do. So you're not just like, it's not like playing Skyrim where you're just one-shotting everything. You have to plan out your attacks and your movement and where you are on the map because enemies can get to you and they'll act and do things. The combat is so interesting, and especially I found it very interesting when I played it with a group because then their abilities would bounce off of my abilities and vice versa. Like we had, for example, I'll show some video of the game here. We had Jimmy on our team, and he went very heavy into heavy armor. So he was a big tank. So we just threw him into the middle of the field, and he would just roll his shields the whole time, and he would just soak up all of this damage. He must have taken like 30 hit points worth of damage, but he just kept standing because they just couldn't get through his armor. And that's because he built his character that way. So while he's tanking all the damage and causing a distraction, we're shooting them from range and killing them. It's fantastic the way you can work together with your teammates and your party to accomplish goals and stuff. There's all kinds of different little mini game things you can do. So there's a very cool lockpicking mechanic where you'll roll dice to lockpick and open up chests to get items. You can buy things from the shop. You can go to the inn. You can take side quests. There is so much to do in this game. You can play this thing for hours and hours and hours, and you will never see the whole thing. There's so much to get to do. And they planned this out so well and so far ahead. The core game references expansions that haven't even come out yet, so they knew what they were doing even before they got all the content out. There's a ton of different like combinations of classes and races, so you can always find a new way to play the adventure. Even if you follow the quest the same way, it's going to be different because you chose different characters. So the way you go about the missions is going to be different. I wish I would have played it earlier. This easily would have been my #1 game of 2025 if I would have played it last year. It's going to be on my list for 2026. I don't know how it couldn't be. There's 10 other games that just completely obliterate it. It's a fantastic game. I'm doing a campaign with some friends right now. I absolutely adore it. This was one of the coolest gaming experiences that I've had this year. That I've had at all. So this is the best game I've played in January, hands down. I encourage you to try it if you can. It is a big game, but it's very intimidating. I found it very intimidating as well. But once you get to it and once you figure out what you're doing, it just flows so smoothly. They really took the time to figure out how this game should work, and in a way where it's not as complicated as it seems. It really flows well. The things you're doing make sense for why you're doing them. The abilities make sense for how they work and what they do. The story makes sense. The things that you're doing, it all works. It all just kind of flows together, and there's, like I said, so much variance. There's like this huge stack of items. I just bought a deck full of cheese, a chef class. It's the insanity of the Elder Scrolls world is here. My God, if they did this with Fallout, I would lose my mind. I love Fallout. I like a little bit more than Elder Scrolls, as far as Bethesda games go. So if they did this Fallout, I think I would lose my mind. I don't think they will, but that would be incredible. Chip Theory, if somehow you ever find this video, please do this, but with Fallout. Anyway, this was the best game that I played in January, hands down. It is absolutely fantastic. I am always down to play it. So if you want to try it, just message me and we'll get a game together. I'll figure it out, teach you how to play. It is so cool. So yeah, that's my game for January. And what does Cole always say? Let's play some games, play more games, whatever he says. I'm sure he said it in his video. We'll see. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Hopefully we have a real podcast episode going. And I'm sorry it took me so long to upload this video. I'm trying. I will do better. I promise. That is my promise to you. All right. See you guys.